Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another Sunday Hope and Healing session. I'm Royce Fletcher Thomason, and as always, I am greeting you with peace and love. I hope that your day is going well during this holiday season, the last Sunday before Christmas. And a couple weeks ago, last week we did something different. Last week, I was teaching a TTM Level 2 class on mental and emotional healing, neurological upgrading, and brain optimization. The class went really, really well. So we didn't really have a full-on Sunday Hope and Healing session last Sunday. We just had more of a check-in. But 2 weeks ago, we did mainly focused on doing a healing that was centered on increasing your capacity to receive, increasing your capacity to receive, which was really kind of a setup for what it is that we're focusing on today, which is dealing with increasing your capacity to give, increasing your capacity to give. Now, here is a truism. The wealthiest are not those who have the most, but those who are able to give the most. And so we focused a couple of weeks ago on increasing your capacity to receive, because for those of us who have a giving heart, it helps for us to be able to receive in order to be able to pour something back out. You know, you've heard the saying, perhaps you can't squeeze blood from a turnip. And so whereas 2 weeks ago we were focused on healing related to increasing our capacity to receive, I gave you an affirmation in terms of helping to increase your capacity to receive. I'm open to receive. I'm receiving whatever it is that you're wanting to walk in receiving more abundantly. I'm receiving whatever that is now. I'm receiving more and more of the whatever that thing was that God has for me now. Okay, that was an affirmation that I gave you in terms of helping us to increase our capacity to receive. And so today, this last Sunday before Christmas, this is a giving season, and it does feel good to give. It does feel good to give. We're focusing on increasing our capacity to receive. I remember having a conversation with my father. This was some years ago. And he was saying, typically, his focus would be on what he was giving. But this one particular year, he said this was the worst Christmas he ever had. This one particular year, he said his focus wasn't on what he was giving, but what he was receiving that year. And this was when he was younger, much younger. And like all the things that he was really wanting, he didn't get any of those things. So he didn't have a good feeling about what it was that he did, what it was that was given to him. And because he wasn't focused on what it was that he was giving, he didn't experience much satisfaction in that area. And he said he learned from that experience to put the focus on what he was giving, and that really made a difference for him. This is when he was, like I said, when he was a young person. And, you know, that's pretty much been my focus also for a very, very long time on what it is I can give. And I want to help strengthen us in terms of, all of us, in terms of increasing our capacity to give. In order for us to give, we first have to have something in order to be able to give. Now, something that I do want to say, because a lot of people, frankly, who end up coming to, do training and transcending the matrix, who come to be initiated in transcending the matrix, this methodology that we utilize and that we teach. A lot of the folk who come to the work to be trained and initiated in the work are people who are basically giving type people who are givers. And may do a better job in some ways of giving than receiving, may have to actually do a little extra work to be able to receive it. But we focused on that 2 weeks ago. A challenge with that is sometimes if you have a giving spirit, but you don't have very much from which to give, then you don't get the full satisfaction of being able to give in the way that you would perhaps like to be able to give. Okay. Or you may be giving when you don't really have anything left, and then you're left feeling, yourself to be at a deficit, because instead of giving from a full cup, you're giving from an empty cup, and you need to have your own reserves restored. Okay. And so today's healing, if you know of somebody who you believe would be benefited by this healing, I encourage you to send them a text message with a link to this video, or share it on Facebook, or however you would like to share, with something indicating why you believe this would be a blessing to them, why it is that you're sharing it with them. Okay. And so we're not going to do a whole lot of talking today. Not talking in terms of explaining. We're going to let the focus be on the actual healing itself, So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to get started with a prayer. By the way, greetings to everybody who's here with us today. I wish you the happiest of holidays, the most bountiful of blessings upon you and your life, and all those who love you and all those whom you love. Okay. And now let's get into the prayer and get into the healing. Oh God, I know you to be a healer. And through the union that we share, through the power of pure love, I'm demonstrating you as a healer on the behalf of all of those souls who are tuned into this right now, whether right now in this right now moment, or tuned in on a future playback of this video broadcast, as well as all those who are currently silently or out loud stating their names, for the purpose of increasing our capacity to give and bringing us to a whole new level in you. And I bear witness to our wholeness on this date and in this time and space called now. Thank you. Thank you for this gift of your divine love. It is done. It is done. It is done. All right. Now, here's a thing about giving. When we give, we actually create space to receive more. So I want to strengthen us in terms of giving with a mindset of abundance. I want to increase and optimize our abundance mindset. Sometimes people will hoard, or they'll refrain from giving because they have a fear of loss. So we want to neutralize that fear of loss, transmute it into and replace it with awareness of, as you pour out, you have more, you create space for more to pour in. Okay. All right. And so want to look at a general attitude of being able to have an abundance mindset in the process of giving. I'm going to strengthen us all for that. Strengthen our subconscious awareness that we just allow for the flow of a positive feedback loop where energy is constantly flowing to us and flowing through us. So there's that affirmation that I was sharing last week, and there's a spin on it that I'll frequently do, and that's I am giving and receiving. I'm giving and receiving whatever it is. In this case, I'll say added value. I'm giving and receiving added value now. I'm giving and receiving more and more of the added value that God would have to flow to me and flow through me now, right? I use added value. That's something that's kind of neutral. You may do it in terms of love. You may do it in terms of money. You may do it in terms of goodwill, whatever comes up for you. And just kind of let that be a mantra that you let get on the inside of you. Okay. That you're not just repeating it as words, but as much as possible, where you endeavor to get emotionally present with what it is that you're saying, where you can feel, have a sense of this good flowing to you and this good flowing through you, of being a channel through which a lot of good flows in whatever form that good would be meaningful for you to share. Okay. Whether it's, you know, positive energy, whether it's love, whether it's joy, whether it's money, whether it is in terms of creative ideas, whatever the case might be. Okay. Support, whatever the case might be. All right. So I want to strengthen us in terms of, let's look at the collective consciousness of people in the Western world, where the focus is on getting. Okay. I want to transmute that focus on getting to focus on being a clear vessel through which an abundance of good flows. Okay, I want to strengthen us all for that. Strengthen us all for that. Okay, that's looking better now. All right, and let's actually also plant seeds of that awareness of what I was just addressing into the collective consciousness of humanity, the collective consciousness of people in the West, the collective consciousness of people in the West in the year 2025 and beyond. Okay. All right. And let's look at increasing openness to increasing our joy level, optimizing our joy frequency. Okay. I want to strengthen us for us to experience an optimization of the joy frequency within us. And while we're doing it, let's just go ahead and activate the joy gene. Okay. We'll put some electricity to the joy gene. So it's got a good flow of energy going to it. It's activated within us and manifesting in our lives. Okay. All right. And while we're activating the joy gene, let's also go ahead and activate the abundance gene. Strengthen us for that. In terms of having, not just in terms of having an abundance mindset, but also in terms of having an abundance reality. And what goes well with that is also a profound spirit of gratitude and appreciation. So we're optimized spirit of gratitude, optimized spirit of appreciation within us all. Okay. And open our hearts to be able to identify places where we can give that'll make a difference, where it'll make a meaningful difference. Okay. Places where we can pour in areas where it can be received and make a positive impact. Okay. That may be financially in terms of organizations. It may be in terms of the relationships that we give our energy to, putting our energy into relationships that actually are receptive to what it is that we have to offer. And again, where we can have that positive feedback loop going, where we're feeding energy, good energy to them, they're feeding good energy back to us. And the more good energy we're able to pour into our beloved, whether this is romantic, family, a friend, whatever, the more good energy we're able to pour into them, the more good energy they also have and can pour back into us as well. And so it creates this positive feedback loop where positive life affirming energy is continually flowing in a cyclical way. Okay. In a cyclical and self-sustaining way. All right. Okay. Now, want to also deal with, I want to go to our early childhood and our early childhood socialization. Where in some ways where we might have thought things were always all about us. And whether we got what it was that we wanted or whether we didn't get what it was that we wanted, to be able to, in the now and going forward, to be able to wear this world and everything in it as a loose garment. Okay. We can extend a hand and let go of a thing because it's okay. Because we're letting go of a thing doesn't mean that we'll end up having to go without now. And so whether it's giving someone some money who lives on the street, or whether it is giving up something that we cherish, that we believe that somebody else can make even more use of than we can. Okay. There's a story I think about. I'm not saying this, in a bragging way, but I'm saying this because I'd kind of like us to get this in our spirit of just what's possible. My father is the oldest of he and his 4 siblings. There's a 14-year age difference between my father and my youngest uncle. My youngest uncle and I am the oldest and have 5 younger siblings under me. There's a 16-year difference between me and my youngest sibling. But my father's youngest sibling, my youngest uncle, he and I are just 7 years apart. And we would spend time sometimes at a paternal grandparents' house. And he had a lot of toys and things. And he did a wonderful job of keeping up, with his toys and taking really good care of them. Again, he was only 7 years older than me. And one of the things that he had was this thing called Rock'em Sock'em Robots. You all know about Rock'em Sock'em Robots? We would play Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and you had these buttons, and you push one button down, and it'll punch with the right hand. You push the other button down, it'll punch with the left hand. And the object would be to make the head pop up on the opponent's robot. And so I really, really liked that Rock'em Sock'em Robots. And that was something that I wanted for Christmas. And I got it for Christmas. My uncle's was blue and red. His robots were blue and red. My robots were orange, and I don't remember if it was orange and white or orange and black. But anyway, I got Rock'em Sock'em Robots too, but it was a different color scheme than my uncle's. And my parents were still married at the time, and they were part of this couples club called Pace Setters. And one of the things that their couples club did was they collected toys and gifts and gave them to children who were less fortunate. And somehow there ended up being some delay in terms of when they ended up giving these gifts, but I got the Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and I thought about what would really probably make some other child's day. And the Rock'em Sock'em Robots that I had just gotten, I ended up giving, putting that list to go to some child that was less, less fortunate than I was. And like, even to this day, I experience a degree of joy in thinking about what fun that child probably had. The Rock'em Sock'em Robots. And I still, even though I no longer have my own Rock'em Sock'em Robots at that point, I did still have the benefit of playing with my uncles, who was just 7 years older than me. And like I said, took really good care of his things. And so like, I think about, this is, my parents divorced when I was 9. And I'm in my mid-50s now, and I still have joy when I think about that. When I think about, and I don't know who the child was or anything, but I believe then, I still do believe now, that they were able to experience a lot of joy with this Rock'em Sock'em Robots game. And so I want to, in that spirit, increase our sense of enthusiasm and joy about bringing joy to the life of another for their own sake, for what it does for them. Okay. And the reality is, when we can really celebrate what joy another person is experiencing, you know what that does for us? It increases our own joy frequency as well. It increases the amount of joy that we feel. Anytime you feel joy, your joy is activated, right? So I want to strengthen us in terms of experiencing joy in the process of giving. And what happens is that when we have a sense of reward, there's a chemical or a hormone called dopamine that ends up being released in our brain that gives us a sense of reward. It feels good to be able to have that. You know, we get a little dopamine hit if we get a notification on our phone and look at it, or we get a like on a post and we look at that. That's how people end up getting addicted to social media and addicted to their devices and stuff, right? But that's like an unearned dopamine hit, which ends up resulting in the addiction. That's not how the dopamine was actually divinely designed. The dopamine was designed to you doing something or accomplishing something, then you get that sense of reward, and then you want to repeat that. You want to repeat doing the thing that gives you that sense of fulfillment, that sense of accomplishment, you know, kind of like receiving a payday for the work that you've put in. Okay. And so want to strengthen the association between us giving and us being able to experience joy, while at the same time not having a spirit of depression if we're not able to give to the degree that we want to. So want us to be able to be neutral in that sense of our capacity to give, where we're not feeling less than or inadequate if we don't have, like, say for this time of the year, maybe the money to expend getting the types of gifts that we might like to. And so for a long time in my life, I was making a lot of gifts. These were things that I put my heart into and my time. They were labors of love. And hopefully they were received in the spirit that they were given. I think about years ago, this is specifically related to my father again. Some of you know that I, to this day, enjoy the artistry of DJing. And I started DJing back in the 80s. And my father, one Christmas, actually had, well, he made me what's called a coffin or a case for DJ equipment, and actually gave me a new little thing. And he was good with his hands, still is, I presume, good with his hands. And he actually made me this case for my DJ equipment. And that was like a labor of love for him. When I was in college, that case would be shipped down to Tuskegee, Alabama from Detroit sometimes for me to be able to have my DJ stuff there while I was in school in that case. And that case I had until I was in seminary, and I moved from Detroit to New Jersey in a 15-foot moving truck. And then I transferred to a school, from the school in New Jersey to a school in Indianapolis. And I moved from New Jersey to Indianapolis on the Greyhound. So a lot of stuff got left behind. I did end up renting a car and going back and getting some things, but not others. But at that point, vinyl stopped being made. And I was like, what's a CD? You can't scratch a CD. For some of you, that sounds like a good thing, but for a person, a DJ who likes mixing and scratching and stuff, that wasn't it for me. So anyway, I was moving in a different direction and kind of got away from DJing for a while. I say all that to say, I want to increase our ability to have a sense of adequacy independent of what it is that we can give or how it is that we can give, and not necessarily basing what it is that we can give based on the amount of money that we have. So I want to neutralize that, okay? Because regardless of how much money you have, there's always something that you can give, okay? There's always some resource that is at your disposal that you can give, and you may be able to give in a more meaningful way, okay? One of the favorite gifts that I've ever received in life is one that I didn't have the good sense to fully appreciate at the time that it was given to me. And that was something that my mother gave me as a graduation gift from high school. And what she did was she made this book thing, I guess kind of like a scrapbook, sort of, but nuanced. And it had all of my school years. All of my school years, things that I had done, things that I had accomplished. You know, it had articles that I had written in the newspaper, had certificates for football, had, you know, standardized test scores, you know, and then she's writing and commenting, you know, all throughout the thing. To this day, I still have that. And I have it in a fairly prominent place in my home where it can be easily accessed. Okay. That was a long time ago. That was a long, long time ago. 37 years ago. And that's still very meaningful to me now. That's something that wasn't bought per se. It was something that was given that was actually very, very meaningful. And so you can always give regardless of what it is that you think you have from a financial standpoint. But we do want to be able to also optimize your earning power to be able to give in that way too. So we want to be able to strengthen you for that, to be able to for us to be neutral, to be able to be strong energetically, independent of what our financial situation is, while at the same time increasing our earning power. Okay. And differentiating our value as human beings based on what our financial situation or our financial status might be. Okay. But to be able to actually have our identity rooted and grounded in the source of all existence and in our creator, the sustainer, the creator and sustainer of life itself. Okay. All right. All right. Now, I want to also address just things going back through the ancestral lineage where we felt like, where there may have been this feeling of having so little or never having enough, or this struggling to get by concept or experience, lived experience even. Okay. I want to transmute that into one of the things that comes from that, though, is being able to have a profound sense of resourcefulness, and want to be able to maintain that sense of resourcefulness, maintain a sense of spiritual integrity, maintain a sense of genuine humility, a confident humility, and a humble confidence, and also to be able to give what matters most in a situation. Give what's most needed in a situation. Sometimes what's most needed in a situation is a listening ear. Sometimes what's needed most in a situation is understanding. Sometimes what's needed in a situation is compassion. So want to increase our capacity to be able to give those sorts of things as well. Okay. This is a few days before Christmas, 4 days before Christmas. Jesus, who this day honors and commemorates his birth, wasn't born in the best financial situation. In fact, there wasn't any room in the housing location for him, and so, or for his parents. And so when he was born, he was actually essentially like born in a barn with animals. They call it a manger, but it's essentially born outside, in the elements. Okay. And so want to actually strengthen our capacity to be able to, wherever it is that someone is, we're able to bring or give them something that would be valuable or meaningful in that moment. What the story, as the story says, that the wise men brought gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold has material value, obviously. Frankincense and myrrh are purifying agents. In fact, my great-grandfather, Pierpont Morgan Pickett, whose birthday I was born on, who was born with a given name doctor, who was also a healer. His vocation was actually working in the coal mine in Alabama. And have you heard of black lung disease? A lot of coal miners used to get black lung disease. And there was something that was done. There was somebody who actually stayed very, very healthy. What he ended up doing was he ended up taking myrrh and putting it in kind of like a mask. And so he breathed in the myrrh, and he actually ended up sharing it with other people also. And the people who did not use the myrrh, they ended up having all of this stuff in their lungs that negatively impacted their health. The people who didn't have that issue at all. None of the people who used the myrrh had that issue at all. It served as a purifying agent. Okay. The frankincense in a different way does that also. So to be able to identify what can be of value in terms of Joseph, Mary, and Jesus, what was identified as being of value was something that would be able to support them materially and something that would be able to support them spiritually and in terms of their health. Okay, those were gifts that were provided, gifts that were given that proved meaningful. Okay, so for us to be able to have the capacity to be able to identify what would be experienced as being meaningful for someone, and to be able to sow in that area, to plant seeds in that area, to give in that area of what they could experience as meaningful. And like me, when I was just graduating from high school, I at the time didn't necessarily have the capacity to appreciate the value of this graduation gift that my mother gave me until sometime later. And so I want to strengthen our capacity to be able to give without any attachment to the outcome, because sometimes the gift won't necessarily be able to be experienced and received and valued until a later point where it shows up and hits them in a different way where it has meaning. So to be able to give generously and to be able to give open-heartedly without an attachment to the outcome, and allowing it to unfold however it needs to unfold without needing to control that. Okay. All right. Now, want to strengthen us also to be able to have a profound joy in seeing others receive. Okay. So I want to turn off the inner hater in us. All right. I want to turn off the inner hater in us that would maybe have us jealous or envious when we see somebody else having something that we think that we want, or appearing to have something that we think we want that we don't feel like we have. To be able to celebrate what it is that other people have, including whatever they may be receiving from someone else, and to be able to experience a joy in terms of being able to see those who we sow into feeling fulfilled. Okay. Give them that gift of feeling joyous and fulfilled in what it is that we were empowered to be able to bless them with, whatever that might be. Okay. All right. We'll do a few more corrections and then we'll cut this off. But let's now look at actually up-leveling our up-leveling our ability to learn new things. Sometimes we think that we know it all, and so we don't make room for more or new information coming in and can't give. So I had a conversation with somebody recently, and they were talking about, they had a loved one, they had no clue what they wanted. Want to be able to increase us all to be able to find creative ways to find what it is that someone else is wanting, what someone else is needing, and to be able to find a way to fulfill that need. Okay. You could be someone who's looking for a job. Okay. You may want a job or may want a new job. And there's situations wherein there may be someone who may be looking for what it is that you have to offer, but they have to know what it is that you have to offer. And a way that they know what it is that you have to offer is by you being able to identify what it is that their pain points are, and being able to present in a way that makes sense to them, how you can actually fulfill that need, how you can eliminate that pain point and fulfill that need that they have. Okay, that's something that you'd be able to give, something that you can offer, an area where you can add value. And in your process of adding value, there's going to be something that's going to be exchanged in that process where you'll also be receiving as well. So let's strengthen our ability to identify where, to whom, and how we can actually add value. Increase our ability to be able to identify and recognize that, and then to be able to act upon that accordingly. Okay. All right. All right. Now let's also look at strengthening this in terms of our generations that follow us, and even going back retroactively to the generations that came before us. Okay. To where there's a flow of energy that has a positive attitude as it relates to giving. Giving in a way that can make a life-affirming impact. Okay. All right. And something else I want to look at right now is I want to look at us finding new ways to turn ourselves on in giving. In other words, finding, like, the actress Regina Hall. a lot of us first knew her from the movie The Best Man, where she played a character named Candy. There's 3 movies. No, the 3 movies, or just 2 movies in a series, TV series on The Best Man. That also had Sanaa Lathan, Taye Diggs, Terrence Howard, Morris Chestnut, and Nia Long. Anyway, what's her name? Monica Calhoun, I think is her name. Regina Hall talked about, like, where she kind of got her start was not quite her start, but where she started kind of becoming recognized and, started getting more roles was a small role she initially had playing this character Candy in The Best Man. And she initially started off, she was an entertainer. She was an entertainer for the bachelor party. To put it a different way, she was a stripper. And so that was the role that she had to play. And there was a person who is an actual stripper, who is a real life stripper, not an actress, that told Regina that she was horrible, basically. That she did not look the part. She didn't seem authentic. Nobody was going to buy it. And she said that what this lady had her do, she told her to dance in front of the mirror until you turn yourself on, right? To dance in front of the mirror and to dance in front of the mirror until you turn yourself on. And so I said all of that to say, for us to be able to find ways to get in touch with an aspect within ourselves where we can turn ourselves on in the process of giving. And I'm not talking about from a sexual standpoint per se, although that can be an area where you may want to be able to focus on giving also. That's just not specifically what we're focusing on today, though it can be applied there. But nonetheless, to be able to find creative ways to excite ourselves, to get ourselves, as Abraham would say, tapped in, tuned in, turned on, to feel enthused and excited, to feel alive and connected to life, to feel a sense of passion about giving and finding ways in which we can give that help us feel even more alive. So I want to be able to strengthen us all for that, for the spirit of that to just be able to wash over us to where we become soaked and drenched in being able to find creative ways where we can feel alive, feel connected in the process of giving in a way that makes a difference in someone else's life. Okay. All right. And we're going to get ready to close out with that. So God, thank you so much for the healing that's going forth today. Thank you for this season and the spirit of giving that we tend to want to be in at this time. Help us to remember the true reason of the season, that it isn't just the material things, but it's really centered around love, representative of the love that was embodied in and carried out in even the life of Jesus himself, Yeshua himself, and for us to be able to approach our relationships from a position of joyful giving. And to be able to even give other people the opportunity to be able to give. That's part of what we can give too, is other people the opportunity to give. Sometimes some of us are resistant to be able to receive, but when we're resistant to be able to receive, we cut off other people's blessing from being able to give. So may we be generous givers and gracious receivers. Thank you so much for this healing. Thank you so much for moving in this way in our lives, for moving in our hearts, for moving in our bodies, even for moving in our bank accounts. But overall, for moving in our energetic field and allowing there to be a divine flow that supports our highest and best good and the highest and best good of everyone involved. And for this, we give great thanks and affirm it is done, it is done, it is done. All right, beloved. As always, it has been a pleasure being here with you today. It is the 21st day of December. Happy birthday, happy natal day to my nephew, Dason, whose natal day is today. Sorry, I don't get to see you, my man, but happy natal day to you. Happy natal day to my brother-in-law, Jake, whose natal day is tomorrow. Happy birthday to you too, bro. And Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa to everybody out there who's celebrating those things. And if that's not the holiday that you celebrate, or those aren't holidays you celebrate, still pray that the warmth and joy of this season makes its way to your doorstep and into your heart. And so as we continue to endeavor to enter into the sustainable state of supreme satisfaction, until we meet again, I bid you adieu with peace and love, and we'll catch you next time.